The House of Mystery presents Inside Writing, the radio show where authors discuss their writing process in all genres.
You are back in the House of Mystery, and I am Al Warren, last I heard. And Mr. Martino is making martinis.
I am. Right here in the basement of the House of Mystery.
Yeah, we're not letting you out either.
Nope. I'm chained down here.
You're chained down there. You're chained down there, and we keep throwing amber turds down there for you. That's your munchie. What was that you had on the... You were at the store. What were you showing me? A picture of grass? You were waiting in a lineup for grass? What is that?
Well, that was the cats. That was like the cat.
So you're buying
grass.
your cat grass? Like marijuana grass? Like what kind of grass?
No, he doesn't smoke it.
Oh, he just eats it.
He just eats it, yeah.
Why do you
At least I've never seen him smoke it.
Well, he needs help rolling, right? He doesn't have fingers. Yeah. Come on.
No.
So what's the deal with that? Like, he doesn't have grass at home? You don't let him out?
Well, he's mainly an indoor cat. We might put him in a harness soon and allow him to go around the patio or whatever. But for the most part, he is an indoor cat, and so he needs his greens.
You gotta eat the green.
Green.
Yeah, I can't tell you enough about eating green. What it does for me. You want your cat to be like me.
Yeah, well, that's what happens with the cat.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know what goes on over there. There's something going on in that house.
You don't want to know.
I don't.
No.
Scared. You should have a warning label on the door.
We do.
Yeah, don't let him be crazy. Well, speaking of warning labels, okay, so we're in the horror and not horror section again today, and
That's right.
Horrors was last week. So today we're talking 4 murder mystery plays, okay, and we got a guy that wrote it, and so we're going to find out why. So Mr. David Michael Kempf, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how happy you are at the end.
I guess we will.
I'm known to be a little bit. So, listen, I see this as like a, this is a book of, I guess, 4 stories, basically.
Correct. Yes, they're like they're short plays. They're like 10-minute one acts. They're 4 one acts, but they kind of put a longer play if you sort of put them all together. They have like the same detective character in all 4.
So, first of all, why are you writing it like a play? Like, what's the idea behind this?
I liked some of the stuff that you got to see, like in live theater, that was just more fun to see, with people actually acting it out as opposed to just watching it like in a short movie or something like that. Like, I love the movie Death Trap. It's one of my favorite movies, but to actually see it live with the thunder and the lightning and like live people walking around and you feel like somebody's actually getting murdered in front of you, I think the experience is just more intense with live actors as opposed to film.
Yeah. Well, you've written, I guess, several short stories. It looks like you said 50 short stories or over 50. And when you get into this, is it a different process writing it like a play? Like how do you picture that in your mind when you're putting it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. You need different kinds of editors. Now, this is the part where I can actually talk about my editors. One of my editors is my cousin Heather Slowacki, who also does my book covers, and I think she does an amazing job. She started her own publishing house called Grayland Press. She's worked with some fairly notable people, and she just does a wonderful job. And she's also written 3 murder mystery books of her own. They're called the Element series. Element Mystery Series, Element of Secrecy, Element of Danger, and Element of Truth. And she's much more, I think, aligned with maybe some of the stuff that you might like, Alan, just like the murder mystery in like its purest sense without any of the graphic horror, I'm assuming. As far as the plays go, I knew I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I knew I was going to have fun. And, it was just like a new experience writing plays. Because I was an English major, I read a lot of plays. And I won an award in college about my paper about Arthur Miller's The Crucible, and I took a seminar on Arthur Miller. So I liked the whole process. But I ended up hiring this lady, Colette Friedman, who has had plays produced all over the world. And even though, the changes were subtle that she made, the world of difference was just incredible. Like, yeah. I thought that there was no limited budget on my play. We could change sets 5 times for a 10-minute play. It's ridiculous. Yeah. But she kept it simple so that, it could actually be done, like really be done in the practical sense, keeping it to one set and keeping the number of characters to what was really necessary for the plot, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. So now, what's the premise behind this? When you say 4 murder mystery plays, and you talked about alcoholism as a serious problem, and again, so is murder. Well, I don't see a problem with it, but murder, that is. But let's talk about the premise. Like, what does it mean to you?
Well, I wanted to not just have plays that were focusing on murder mystery elements, but also, I'm a person in recovery. I'm an alcoholic. And I haven't had a drink in 6.5 years. And first of all, I had to get past the nonsense that, to be a great writer, you must be drunk all the time. There have been great writers who've been drunks, and there have been drunks who thought they were great writers, I think it's irrelevant. I think, we were talking about Truman Capote a little while ago. I totally agree with him when he said that you're either a writer or you're not.
Yeah,
I really believe that.
Yeah, and not only I think when you get into that, it's you're a writer or not. So when you're drinking and you're writing, or when you're not drinking and you're writing, you're still writing. It represents who you are at the time. So I don't think one means the other personally, but. Well,
no, I agree with that. I thought that altering your mind is what made one great, quote unquote. And I would, just put on like a bunch of old movies, things that I've seen before, like Risky Business 100 times, something that I wouldn't pay too much attention to as background noise. But I think that the way that I do it now, I read a lot more, I take in more, and I can really concentrate on the story structure in my novels and my plays and my short stories. And the other thing, too, is the humility of being sober makes your mind more open to actually listening to the criticisms of your editor. When I was drinking, I'm not even sure why I hired an editor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, but the editor themselves, if you find someone that you connect with that's good, it'll turn out good. I mean, they're there to make the book better. So for them to ask questions it's a good thing, and if they get too pushy, then you just push them down the stairs or something.
I've been dealing with my cousin as an editor, and we get along very well, but also he used to be a Bucks County guy now. He moved to North Carolina. His name is Al Sirois. He wrote some really great books. One was called Silly Ghouls, one was called The Bohemian Magician, and his wife is also a writer. She just published her first novel, Visible Signs. And Al is just a terrific editor. Again, similar to Colette Friedman. Just like sometimes you need a second set of eyes you miss things in your own work. And, the advice is to just put things aside. And then when you come back, say after you had your first or second draft, like 2 or 3 months later, and you read it, it's almost like somebody else wrote it.
Yeah.
And you can read it with fresh eyes. Yeah. You guys are writers. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, it happens all the time. And
it was also, this stuff was inspired by my love for Edgar Allan Poe, and I would say my intense fandom of Brian De Palma's movies, his early movies like Dress to Kill and Blowout and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So your gruff detective that you've got in the center of the place. How does someone like that get created in your mind? Is this something that you just develop in imagination, or you dream about it? Do you hear this character? Do you see him? Like, how does this all work for you?
That's a good question, Alan. Well, I'll tell you, this is what's funny is, it's no secret that addicts and alcoholics have had problems with law enforcement. I don't think I need to point that out too much. So some of my friends in the 12 steps have accused me of being a little harsh on the police in my books. And I actually befriended a homicide detective, a retired homicide detective in AA. And, I got to talk and stuff like that with him. And, the stuff he's been through is entirely horrific. I can kind of see how somebody in that line of work, seeing people at their worst, might end up, turning to alter their mind.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was a combination of meeting him with, I loved the silly detectives like Peter Sellers, as Clouseau, and I love Columbo. But I also liked some of the more serious detectives. I liked read, because Edgar Allan Poe is the father of the detective story. It was Dupin. Basically, I made the gruff detective a relative of the quote unquote real Dupin, just to get like the Edgar Allan Poe thing in, and that kind of made it, so that it could be more fun and easier to write for me.
Well, what is your process? Like, so not to get too weird, but a lot of writers over the years that we've talked to will describe their characters as, family or friends, or they'd have this description of characters like they're personal people they know. Is that is it same for you in your case?
Yeah, I think so, but at the same time, I think it's also, I do an awful lot of nods, a lot of homage stuff to things that have inspired me when I was younger. And, of course, as I'm sure you guys know, every character is kind of you a little bit, as you probably already know since you're writers. There's a little bit of you in all the characters.
Yeah, but I mean, how much of you do you want to put in something like this? I ask this not only because of something I ask a lot of people, but you've got, you're a recovering alcoholic or addict, and so you're writing with alcoholism as one of your serious problems. So, are you comfortable, or you're able to expose your feelings or some of the things that you went through in order to pull this stuff off? I mean, and I mean that in the way of, today's world, everybody and their dog can find you. Like, you're all over, social media and your books and stuff. So you're kind of being a little bit vulnerable by exposing these things about yourself. Is that an issue for you, or are you nervous about that?
No. I'm like a very private person. So if people can think whenever they want. I wanted to also write these plays. I entered like a bunch of play contests. The best I got mixed reviews from theater directors. The best I did was I got runner-up. I was a semi-finalist in one play contest, and that's the best I did out of all the play contests that I entered. But what I would actually like to see is maybe these plays being produced maybe at rehabs. They have, even, after people have been in detox and rehab long enough, they try to have occupational, creative things, arts to occupy their time. I think putting on a play about recovery in a recovery center would be a very interesting experience for the people that were going to rehab.
Yeah, it is an interesting idea. If you're runner-up, if you want to win, you got to sleep with more people.
I'll keep that in mind for next time.
Well, yeah, anytime I need something, I sleep with them, and then I'm there. It seems to work.
Yeah, that's how Warren Beatty got to the top, I guess.
Oh, you no doubt. I'd do anything for him if you want to sleep with me.
That's if I'm really showing my age. I can see the millennials more. Why? Who?
Yeah, who is that? Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering what draws you to the short form. I know you've written novels, short stories, and plays. Do you consider yourself a natural short story writer?
Oh, I think whatever the muse drives me towards, I guess. I really became obsessed with writing 10-minute plays for some reason, and then I did that, and I have to say it's much harder than people think that it is. When I wrote my first novel, the problem was that, I had a bunch of friends, we drank together and got drunk. We were all going to be writers, yet none of us ever wrote anything.
Yep.
And of course, I'm not counting I'm not counting municipal stories from my small town newspaper. Although technically that's professional writing because the checks didn't bounce, I guess.
Well, yeah.
I got to a certain point, I was like pushing 40, and I wanted to write my first novel. And I made myself do it, and I'm really glad that I did. And now I've just finished the third book, in that trilogy. So, it's more hard work than inspiration, but you need the inspiration to be able to do the hard work. And, every character kind of works itself out. If I thought that the detective character should be in a novel, which I still might do, I would have done it that way, but it's the feeling that everything is sort of writing itself. You're just sort of, the story is channeling itself through you, and you're just typing. I know you guys know what that's like.
Well, do your characters ever surprise you? Do they kind of take over the plot, or do you feel like you're in control?
Most of the time I'm in control. A few of them have surprised me and gotten out of control, and they were more resilient than I thought, and they survived. I do seek inspiration from real life events, but a lot of the stuff goes back to my childhood. I still remember watching Salem's Lot when I was a little kid in 1979 with my grandparents, and everybody remembers the little boy scratching on the door floating through the air. And I was like, wow, I wish I could scare people like that. Now, I'm pretty sure I slept, in the same bed as my grandparents that night. But
absolutely.
it was absolutely terrifying. But I knew I wanted to write when I stole my aunt's copy of Peter Benchley's Jaws when I was little. I was like, reading it in secret. I was like, this is so exciting. The killer shark. Brody's wife having the affair with Hooper.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to write about giant sharks and Chief Brody's slutty wife someday. Jaws is my favorite movie of all time, incidentally.
To you, what makes a good story? Like, what elements do you look for?
Well, I suppose I'm not going to say that it have to be profound or something like that, because obviously everybody's not Hemingway or Shakespeare. But I think if it becomes like a true distraction where you can forget about the mundaneness of life for a little while, and it really takes you away, really sucks you in, the way that Salem's Lot, the book, did to me, actually, after I watched the series years later. Just, Interview with a Vampire did that for me. Peter Straub's Ghost Story did that for me. Jonathan Mayberry's Patient Zero did that for me. William F. Nolan's Logan's Run did that for me. So there's certain books that do that. Short stories can do it too, I think. And I remember when I was in college, and the first time I read Clive Barker's short stories, the only thing I knew was Stephen King saying, "I've seen the future of horror, it's Clive Barker." And I was a big King fan, so I gave him a try. And holy cow, man, those were like the best short stories I ever read.
The Books of Blood.
Yes. Thank you, Books of Blood. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I did think was the nerve of him to try to write a sequel to an Edgar Allan Poe story, New Murders in the Rue Morgue, but it was really good. And he was like turning the genre stuff, just turning it upside down, because let's face it, there are a lot of stale ideas, stuff that's been done.
Well, yeah, it's hard to be original when there's so much out there too, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if I'm original or not. I knew that when I was writing my first novel, I knew that there's vampires, werewolves, witches. God knows we have enough zombies now, don't we? It's like, what's like a monster that isn't used that much in a horror novel or books or movies, And then I remember when I was a kid and I read The Arabian Nights, I was like, I want to write about the jinn. I want to write about these genies, try to manipulate us and try to get us to, very similar to the real leprechauns in Irish folklore, try to get us to mess up by, wording our desires, our wishes the wrong way. So, I read the Arabian Nights, watched the movie Wishmaster again, read parts of the Quran, and lo and behold, my first novel was about evil genies.
When you write a book, and like even this newer one you've got out, this 4 murder mystery plays, when someone takes that and reads it, is there something you're hoping they take away from that besides the entertainment part?
Such a good question. Well, besides being entertained, I suppose I hope that they learn that we're kind of all in this together, that we're all the same, meaning human beings, maybe to take it easy and not judge people so harshly, which I know is hard. Because we frequently don't get our way. You might have thought that Mrs. Shields should have given you a B instead of a C in 3rd grade. I don't know. And much more serious things than that. But yeah, I try to sort of like a sense of connectiveness, I guess, is something that I aspire for readers to feel.
Yeah. Well, that teacher in 2nd grade, she got hers.
Oh yeah, I had her head cut off by a lion in my second. I'm just kidding.
No, okay, so now we're getting into the real stuff.
Exactly. I want it where the readers are in on the joke, but the characters aren't. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a form of suspense in a way, because the readers know what can happen or what's going on, but the characters don't all know. So
Exactly. And you see that in movies, too. It's almost like you're one of the Greek gods. You already know what their fate's going to be.
Yeah.
I feel that every time I watch the movie Seven. After you watch it the first time, you're like, yeah, now I know what's in the box now. It's not going to shock me anymore.
It's a chocolate cake. Well, when you finish a book, something like this, that has a lot of you in it and a lot of things you've dealt with in your life, and you complete the book and you look back at it, it's out now. How do you think that's changed you?
Well, it's a sense of accomplishment that I've done that. I feel a very similar sense of accomplishment. This is not too strange for you guys, I think, when I get blurbs from people that I admire, and they've enjoyed, the work that I've done. I was I was very pleased with the blurbs that I got for 4 murder mystery plays. Just some great people there.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Nicholas Grabowski, for example. I think he's great. And, it's a small world. Clive Barker's a big fan of Nicholas Grabowski. I'm a big fan of Nicholas Grabowski. And I just think that his work is, it's written in a way that it's like this unique style. Ironically, I can't put it into words. But I've had blurbs from people that have just blown me away, like Jonathan Mayberry and Gary Razor and this lady, Meredith Bogart Brown, who wrote for Heavy Metal Magazine, I'm a big fan of. This actress, Lorraine Evanoff, this new kid, Natasha Sinclair, this actor, George Stover from B-horror movies and John Waters movies. He really liked my play about the laundry room. That was pretty cool. I grew up watching these low-budget movies, too. Do you guys know who Don Dohler was?
Oh, no, I don't. Dave, no. I don't.
He was a low, and I mean low, budget horror movie maker, and I found that so inspiring that he didn't have to go to Hollywood. He just made movies right there in Maryland in his home. And George, being an actor there, for example, he worked for the only two, I shouldn't say the only two, but the 2 primary movie directors in Maryland were John Waters and Don Dohler. So that's who George frequently worked with. And, I like the midnight cult movies a lot. So, that was pretty cool when he liked something that I wrote. Murder mystery set in a laundry room. That is definitely, you could do that low budget, I think.
You kind of have a point to it, but right, like when you say that, you're kind of meaning that I think you're trying to bring up the point of how alcoholism can really screw up your life.
Oh, it's it's a tragedy, man. I'm not going to say my sponsor's name, obviously, but he probably, oh my gosh, he was just a genius IQ and an engineer. He probably could have ended up being just incredibly successful. He's doing pretty well now because he hasn't had to drink in 15 years, but he just through a lot of his life, he ended up being homeless. Here's this guy with a genius IQ, and he ends up being homeless. It's unbelievable. So, yeah, it definitely can ravage your life.
Yeah.
And I can say in all seriousness that it is a devastating problem that you have to do something about. And I do think there's more than one way to get sober. I think you can get sober in other ways besides AA, but I do believe the program helps a lot of people.
Yeah, it sure seems to. So where do you see yourself going next now that this book's out? Where do you see yourself doing with writing here?
Well, I'm finishing up on my new novel, and I think, that's going to be good to take all the characters from dark fiction and damned fiction and finally put an end, to the story. I do try to get people to think about addiction and what a terrible problem that it is. I mean, I guess, I don't know if you guys saw that I wrote a children's book about addiction with my son when he was 8, and I'm very proud of that. There's not too many, children's books about addiction. It's kind of a, grim fairy tale, dark subject, I guess, for a children's book, but I think we did a good job with it. And, I did a novel, They Laughed at Me, which was about a recovering alcoholic on house arrest who moonlights as a comedian, even though he has an ankle bracelet on. And there's various references to alcoholism in my short stories. And obviously, as you guys know, the plays are very thematic and filled with the horrors of addiction, and particularly in rehab, the horrors of withdrawal. Because watching people go through withdrawal is terrible, particularly alcohol withdrawal. Alcohol withdrawal, heroin withdrawal, you would think would be worse, but even though they feel like crap and they feel horrible and hellish, they're still going to live. You can genuinely die of a heart attack or a stroke going through alcohol withdrawal, and it's an ugly thing to have to see.
Yeah.
Even worse to experience, I might add.
I could imagine. How long does it take someone to recover from something like that? Withdrawal?
Genuinely, 48 hours, you're pretty much in the clear.
Yeah. You have to take drugs to kind of stop getting the shakes? Yeah,
they typically Valium, benzos to keep people from having a stroke or heart attack. They give people stuff. I mean, I don't know the exact stuff they give, but it's extremely dangerous if you're at the end stages, Alan, where you're drinking on an empty stomach and you're not eating and you're not sleeping and you've lost a lot of weight and you don't know what the hell's going on, and then to just stop. It's extremely dangerous.
Yeah, I could imagine that would be a terrible thing to go through. So social media and all that. So do you have a website or a place that people can come find you?
Well, the stuff is listed for Masters of Horror. I usually just go right to my Amazon page. I did have a website. It's down right now. I'm going to have my cousin probably design me an all-new website.
Okay. So how was the writing over the last little while for you with COVID and all the weird stuff going on? Does that affect you, or just things going on in your life, I guess is kind of really a question. I mean, of course it affects you, but do you find that it interferes with your writing itself?
I'd hate to say it. It was actually kind of a hidden blessing.
Okay. No.
But yeah, I mean, to be alone and to be able to just, because I live alone, just to be able to just have all that, isolation and privacy, I guess. I feel now like I'm 54 years old. I feel like there's just not enough hours in the day to get done what I want. And, even though it was unpleasant and scary for all of us, the pandemic, and it's particularly hard to explain to children, my son or my niece, my nephew, whatever, the time that I got to, to try to put some of these ideas out, it was pretty cool, actually. I mean, I'm sorry for the COVID outbreak, and I wish I could tell you that it was horrifying, but it was actually sort of creative and productive, quite honestly.
No, I get both responses. Some people find it's been good for them and helps them get away and be creative, and other people, shuts them down, stresses them out, and they can't function very well or write very well. So you kind of get both. So yeah, it's interesting.
Also an amateur magician here. I'm getting my magic stuff together to do some shows in the summer. My town's carnival usually has my son and I doing a magic show. So it's just us and a clown, pretty much, as the entertainment.
Wow.
I'm not going to say the clown's name.
Gacy?
No.
William Gacy, the clown?
It's Amber. It's Amber something. I can't remember.
Amber Turd.
Yeah, well, the people usually get into it. It's funny. I feel like I'm in the middle of a Ray Bradbury story.
No, it's good.
And the movie Magic is one of my favorite movies of all time. I don't know if you guys saw that, the one with Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, actually, I did. Yeah. That's really good.
The book is even better.
The book is always better.
Actually. Well, even though I love the book Jaws, I'd have to say that the movie's better. I also think the movie The Shining's better than the book.
I agree.
But in general, you're definitely correct.
Yeah.
You're absolutely, definitely correct.
Well,
So I just wanted to I wanted to thank Jeff Oliver for connecting me to you guys. I wanted to thank my friend Tamara Thorne for the blurbs for the first play. And I'd like to give a shout out to my friend Michael Baker, who makes his own homemade magic tricks, stuff that is just, incredible. I mean, I like some of these cell phone effects for magic and things like that, but the old world artist, craftsman that he is, his magic tricks are incredible. Like, even if you just want to collect the stuff as art. Because as I'm speaking to you guys, I'm just looking around and I have more magic tricks than I know what to do with. It's a replacement addiction, I think. I can't stop buying them.
Well, as long as you can keep affording them. Going out stealing.
Their commercials work really well on me in my mind. Yes, it's expensive, but do you want to just be some amateur magician, or do you want to be the real deal? And I'm kind of like, well, I want to be the real deal.
Just add water. It works. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I guess I could do some ventriloquism over the radio for you guys. I'm kidding.
Yeah. Okay. Well, on that note, it's been an interesting conversation, and we're going to wrap it up today, and we appreciate you coming by. Now, your latest book is called 4 Murder Mystery Plays. Of course, our guest is the writer of that, Mr. David Michael Kempf. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun, guys.
You've been listening to the House of Mystery radio show. To find out more about our guests, hosts, or shows, go to www.houseofmystery.com.
Show's over for now.
Was it as good for you as it was for me?
Well, good night.
This has been a production of Something Weird Media.
I'll be back.